Hello, it's Deborah from the attic. You might remember a few weeks ago I loaded a video that showed my Wintersmith journal once it had been made, and I thought it would be useful to share what I've been doing with the journal since I finished it, because the last time you saw it in that video it was blank. I'm going to talk to you about the pen afterwards as well. So this journal was never designed to be about a single event such as just Christmas Day. It was always supposed to capture winter, and I wanted to try and make it tactile, visual. I wanted to think about how I could bring in all of the five senses into one book. At the beginning, I haven't done anything with these tags, you might recognise these from the last video, but in the beginning one of the ways to get tactile interest going was I used a snow style emboss, sort of raised dots, embossing plate to emboss some card. So I love this, and sometimes actually when I'm sitting thinking about it, I'll sit and I'll have this tag. That might sound a bit strange. I'll sit and have this tag in my hand while I'm writing something, and I'm just feeling the texture of snow, or that's how I intend it to be. You can't really feel the texture of snow, it would melt. The other thing that's very important to me in the winter time is music, and I listen to a lot of music. Sometimes in the evening I'll just put on a candle and sit very quietly, and maybe if it's only half an hour or so, just listen to 2 or 3 tracks. So what I've done in my journal is I've written down some of the lyrics from my favourite Christmas songs, the songs that really create an atmosphere, and I've got a couple here. This is brilliant, Sia, Underneath the Christmas Lights, and the reason that that's written several times is because in the song it's sung several times, but each time the line is sung slightly differently. I really like that. I've got some photographs that I've printed off using my sprocket. If you don't know what a sprocket is, because I only discovered it quite recently, this is what it is. It's a tiny little printer, and it's got this size of printable pages in there. You have to buy them specially, and they've got some clever whizzy ink in them that just selects the colours that are in your photograph, and then the magic pixies make it be a picture, and I don't really get more technical than that. And I've also started, this is my dog. My dog makes me smile. He's always a big part of what we do. If we go on walks or if we go out anywhere where we can, we take him with us because he's just ridiculous and he makes us laugh a lot. This little pocket has an event that was local to us to commemorate Armistice Day, so I've kept that in that little pocket. That felt appropriate to this time of year as well. And then I've got some pictures that I've cut from magazines that specifically speak to me of Christmas, or give me ideas, or give me thoughts about winter time and getting cosy and nesting. I like to hibernate in the winter time, but I also like greenery in the house, so there's some ideas here about how I can bring the outdoors in and make the interior of the house a bit more cosy. In this pocket I've stored a card that I made. I made a few of these, you might have seen the video for these as well, and I loved the nighttime sky effect. It was actually suggested by one of the subscribers to the channel, and in response to the comment I had an experiment, and it was a good call, because it's lovely to create wintertime scenes and then have the twinkling stars, and I like that. It just makes me feel all cosy and warm. I've got lots of blank pages because this time it's only late November. I want this to see me through until maybe the end of January. So, oh, I've got some, there's some poetry as well. There's some, this is long remembered from many years back. It's Robert Burns, and it's Up in the Mornings, No For Me, Up in the Morning Early. I think, yeah, that's exactly how I feel when it's cold and dark outside. You don't want to get out of your bed. There's a few little things that I've cut from magazines, which are nice because of I like the foliage behind the word. And anything like that, it's a good idea to hang on to it. If you see something, oh, could I make a card with that as an idea? And so hang on to things like this because they're your future inspiration. The book was made using pages, beautiful pages from a kit from Screech Owl Studio on Etsy. This one was called Le Corbeau, and it's stunning. I think the images are just amazing. Here's more pictures cut from magazines that I've kept, and here's a couple of things again from magazines, and they just tuck neatly into these nice pockets. I've got, this is my hymn to disorder, so on the reverse of this I've written how I want to use my journal, and it's a real mismatch, so I don't want it to be a logical sequential thing. I find that a little bit restrictive, and I also find it a bit intimidating. If I can dip in and just write what I want on any particular page, I'm all up for that. I think that's great fun. So for example, I know a lot of people say when they have a journal they don't want to spoil the pages are so pretty they don't want to write on them. I get that. But you've got to ignore it. You've got to just use what you've got. It's a page, use it. And for example, on this one, I had that little moment where I thought, oh, I'm going to spoil it. But actually, when you see what you've written on it, the page is complete then, and you don't have to use the entire page. So on this one, I love these images, and I love the colours in this bird, and I wanted to keep that as a strong focal, so I just wrote a few words here. That's all I needed to do on that page. You don't need to fill the page in that regular left to right sort of thing that you think of at school, you know, when you're writing in a notebook or something like that. This is much less formal. So this is to remind me to be disordered, and that there is value in being disordered. And I've got some stuff here about things that I've done, and I've dated the activity so that I know when I did it. And it's a nice little reminder, because you think you'll remember, and of course you never do. As the year ticks round, you look back on these things and you think, oh yeah, do you remember we did that thing on that day? On that occasion it wasn't very exciting. That's the day I made a big cottage pie. It's not exciting, but at least I know when I did it. This is useful. I've got some last postage dates. Now, on these are some of the postcards that you can print from the kit that I used to make this. And to make this stand out a little bit more, I've cut myself some strips of paper and I tuck them into this pocket here. So I have these little thin strips, and any time I want to make a note on something or I want to make it stand out, I'll just write on the little strip and then glue the strip on the postcard. And I've always got a few spare in the front pocket there. And there's some ideas for a Christmas buffet that we're going to have, so I've got some ideas for what I might cook and prepare for that. And then I have some music. So I've called this page Listen, and this comes back to what I was saying earlier about songs being very atmospheric and helping to create that sense of wintertime, calm, snow falling and all that sort of stuff. So these are some of my favourites I always dig out at this time of year, and there's a real eclectic mix. I'm not discriminating at all. I will listen to anything. If it gives me that sense of atmosphere, if it makes me feel that sense of wonder, I don't care, I'll listen to it. And there will be more of these, and I've got some, I prepared these, and the idea is I'll write on one side and then I'll write on the other side, and I'm leaving space on these cards for any new tracks that might be introduced to me this year, or that might arrive new into my ears. Then I've got some ideas for little treats, little things that I want to do, so it's very easy just to get caught up in the activity of wintertime and Christmas and all that sort of stuff, and I want to make a note that these are the things that actually make me relax. I've also got another picture of my dog. I think this is the funniest picture I've ever taken of him. It's him smiling. When he bares his teeth, it looks like a smile, and it is the funniest thing. So I've done a die cut here. I've added some little washi tape to the sides of it as well, because that simply makes me smile. There's no other reason for that being in there. So that's as far as my journal is at the moment. I said I would talk about the pen. Now, I've got a couple of pens that I'm going to show you. When I do my writing, I try and use fountain pens. I really like fountain pens. I think they give you the most beautiful effect. And the other thing that's fun about a fountain pen is that you can vary the ink. And I know you can get gel pens and all that sort of thing, but I really like having a shimmering ink in my fountain pen. Now, this won't show up on the camera, but this ink has got a little shimmer to it, and if I know if the page falls a certain way when I'm looking at it, I see that little shimmer in the ink and I remember that the ink is magic, because that's how I think of it. I've got magic ink. So my fountain pens, I've got a couple. This is a full-size one, and this is a mini one. The full-size one has, I think it has blue ink in it at the moment, because you can swap and change them out. And this is a medium nib, and it flows beautifully. I mean, it flows so nicely, and you don't need to put any weight on the nib at all. It just flows. So I really like using a fountain pen, and it's very light as well, and I just like the effect that it gives you. My little one, I got this from a company called, I have to remember, you unscrew it, you don't pull it. My mini one came from a company called cultpens.com, Wintersmith.com, and they're based in the UK, but this is made specifically for them. And what's beautiful about this pen is not only is it small, so it's a nice handbag size or a pocket size, but it's got a narrow barrel. So if you compare it to this one, this is a Lamy pen. I don't know if you say that Lamy or Lamy, but this is a much wider barrel. If I put them both side by side, you can see. So this is great for if I'm at home and I'm doing some writing, or I'm writing in my journal. But if I'm out and about and I want to have a fountain pen with me, this is absolutely brilliant, and it's just such a beautiful little thing. I think fountain pens are elegant little things, and I remember my grandfather writing at a bureau. He had a bureau that had a lid that would fold down, and it had this sort of blotting paper. You can see this is quite well used, but he had a sheet of blotting paper, and he would sit there and he'd do his letters every morning. It's very old-fashioned. And he'd do his letters every morning with his fountain pen, and then he'd get his blotting paper, whatever he'd been writing, it would go on the blotting paper, and then it would get sealed in an envelope if he was doing his letters or his correspondence. And I just thought, I remember as a small child watching this and thinking this was such an elegant way to do something that was actually really mundane and boring and pedestrian, like writing cheques or, you know, dealing with bills or something like that. And I thought, if you can just sit there in a nice environment with a beautiful pen, it lends the moment something more than just writing a cheque. So that's always stuck in my mind. I've always thought that was a lovely way to do things. So that's why when I'm writing my journals, or same when I'm writing my work diary, actually I use my fountain pens. Sometimes point pens, it depends on the type of paper. If you've got a really dense weave paper, or sorry, loose weave paper, and it absorbs the ink, then your ink would go fuzzy from the pen. So it'll depend. Maybe a ballpoint is more appropriate on some occasions. If I have the choice, I'll go with my little fountain pen. I'll provide a link below so you know where you can go to find these pens, and I will also update you later on when I've done a little bit more in the journal. But I wanted you to get some ideas for how you could use your journals as well. Something else actually I didn't mention is in one of the pockets in here I've got some fronds, I don't know what to call them, some little pieces of sandalwood that a friend brought me back from a trip that he made to somewhere really exotic like Zanzibar. I can't remember exactly where it was, but it's got such a beautiful scent to it, and it's like a Christmassy, warm, cinnamony scent. So that's in here as well, so that whenever I open my book there's a scent. And you could do exactly the same if you have myrrh or you have frankincense. They're like resin gums. You could put those in your book and they will give you the scent of Christmas, or maybe a cinnamon stick, so that every time you open it, it feels like it's a special experience. And that's how I want this to feel. I want this to capture the atmosphere of this winter. I don't just want it to be a diary of events, although there will be little notes that I make on the back of the cards about certain events that have happened, but essentially it's capturing a moment in time. So I hope you found that useful, and until we meet again, take care.